and thank everyone for attending our first of many safety and wholeness committee meetings. Uh, I am Mujahid Muhammad, the committee chair, and I would like to welcome everyone to this January 18th meeting of the Safety and Wholeness Committee. If you not have already done so, please mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone will be muted by the moderator or removed from the call. Additionally, if you are not a board member or the CEO or from the staff presenting, please turn off your video. I will read a roll call of the board to identify who's on the call. Please identify yourself first uh, by stating your name for the record. Uh, Commissioner Coy,
Commissioner Coy, present.
Commissioner Esposito, Commissioner Slater Harrington uh, is present, having some audio challenge, and Commissioner Lawson. So we currently have 3 out of 5 present. Thank you all. Uh, Members of the public who would like to provide public comment to this committee can do so by signing up beginning at 9 a.m. the Monday before the meeting until 5 p.m. the Wednesday before the meeting. Individuals or groups interested in providing comments to this committee may sign up in 3 ways. You are encouraged and very welcome to sign up, as your voice is extremely important to our committee. Please contact the board office at 443-642-2095 or visit the board at the Alice G. Pender Hughes Building, 200 East North Avenue, room 406. Or you can email in, which is probably a lot easier, at schoolboard@bcps.k12.md.us. There will be 3 individuals giving the opportunity to provide comment to the committee each session. Each speaker will be granted 3 minutes. All public comments should address safety and wholeness related issues. Sign-ups, unfortunately, are not permitted the day of the meeting. For more information regarding the committee, please visit the board's website at baltimorecityschools.org under safety and wholeness. In addition, the chat during this virtual meeting will not be used for gathering information or feedback. If you have not signed up for comment, please send any questions to schoolboard at bcps.k12.md.us, and the board office will provide a response. To add to that, with this being our first meeting, we are excited to have the opportunity to do this work on behalf of the school board in our city. We are excited to have the staff from the district showcase the work that is being done on behalf of the safety and wholeness of each of our students. So, with that, I'm excited to get started. And the Dr. Tosei, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you to our Board of Commissioners and our valued community members for joining us for our inaugural Safety and Wholeness Committee meeting. Your presence today is instrumental as we embark on a journey to enhance the safety and well-being of our community. I'm delighted to introduce two key individuals who will be contributing their expertise to our discussion. We have Sabree Jarnes, the Director of School Operations and School Support, and Sonia Goodwin, the Executive Director of Whole Child Services and Support. Their presence underscores our commitment to a holistic approach in addressing the safety and well-being of our community members, especially our students. So we're excited to present to you today and look forward to this being the first step towards a safer and healthier community for us all. So we are about to share our screen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabree Barnes, and I am the Director of Student and School Operations Support. I want to thank you, Dr. Toze, and to board commissioners and to my fellow colleagues who are here with us this afternoon. I'm going to spend some time discussing a mammoth body of work that my office, as well as colleagues from across district offices, are working on, and that is school safety. Um, During this time, I'm going to talk about some of our vision, as well as some of our current initiatives, and just how this cross-functional work and cross-functional work and investments across departments are intertwined and working for the greater good of the safety for not just our students, but our staff and our school communities. Next slide, please. So, what our school safety needs in our schools? Again, I'm going to continue to underscore the fact that school safety is everyone's business. We want to make sure that our approaches and the things that we do and where we direct our attention is aligned with the needs of our students and staff. Um, Partnerships. We cannot do this work alone. Forging the partnerships we have with federal, state, and local agencies and resources. Just to name a couple, the Maryland Center for School Safety, the Maryland State Department of Education, as well as the U.S. Department of Education. And then how do we engage these resources and partnerships across the various offices in our district to further enhance safety standards and services? So what we are encapsulating this body of work in the form of a city schools safety program. Next slide, please, Cora. And this program will be designed to provide guidance and standards for safety in city schools. I hope that during this time with this work with the committee, that we can really put together like some tenets as what do we feel like a safe school looks like? What does it embodies? And just for my colleagues from the Wholeness Office who will be coming on shortly, their work even demonstrates another facet of school safety, because school safety is not just limited to physical infrastructure and doors and windows and drills, but also the facets around like making students feel safe and supported emotionally. And overall, when we put all this and codify all this information, hopefully this school safety program will provide an overview of all the city school safety efforts and something that can be public facing to demonstrate the work that we are doing. Next slide, please, Cora. So if you look at this graphic right here, it just shows like how all of the offices here, all of the cabinets are working together around school safety. And if you notice that equity is in the center, because that should be at the core of everything that we do. The school's office, as well as for instance, like academics, where we'll talk a little bit more about the related service providers as they relate to the threat assessment programs. Operations has, done a tremendous amount of work around physical infrastructure safety, as well as having an emergency management manager and the management of drills. We'll talk about that. even like our partners in legal counsel who at any time we're putting out anything in reference to sensitive matters such as this, they always, point us in the right direction and make sure that we're constantly in alignment with policy. Next slide, please, Cora. So the schoolsafety.org is actually a U.S. Department of Ed driven website and entity that puts forth best practices in pre-K and the pre-K through 12 arena around school safety. And the reason why we are choosing to rely on this resource is because it is, the breadth from where like this information is gathered from all the thousands and thousands of schools around the country. And really they pull together like the core foundational elements of school safety. And what you will see is that these 10 items, when we are working towards our city school safety program, we're going to be operating or organizing our work and conducting our assessment around these 10 items to really see what do we have and what are some things that we will continue, that we would like to work on or add some fortitude. But I'm just going to go through these really quickly. And in the midst of me doing so, I can just share a little bit about some of the projects that we're working on. But I know I've given a lot of information in 2 or 3 slides, so I'm just going to pause for any questions. All right, I will keep going because
please continue. Thank you.
That is okay. No, we're good. Okay. So, for instance, designated staffing is very, very is a key resource. Just in any type of organization, because you need people, making sure you have the right people in the right places. A couple of examples of designated staff that we currently have. First and foremost, our Baltimore City Public Schools School Police Force. We have facilities maintenance and operations has made the investment for an emergency management manager. We have a team of school support managers that support the ensuring the compliance of different safety and emergency policies and procedures, as well as school-based safety personnel. Now, when we get to school-based safety personnel, sometimes those models look a little differently. We have some schools that have made investment in temp employees that they train in-house to provide sorts of student and safety and support services, as well as our contractual partners. The second one is school climate. My colleagues from Whole Child will join us after my presentation to discuss what they're doing with schools around building and nurturing positive school climates. When we get into reporting systems, we actually have an internal BCPS security and safety SharePoint, which is accessible by Baltimore City Public Schools employees. And what you will find on that SharePoint links that are made available to report emergencies and incidents, reporting drills. Another way that we gather information pertaining to safety, parents can always call our central hotline and put in heat tickets. We also catalog different type of student information as relates to safety in Infinite Campus, which is our student information system, just to name a few ways that we are reporting and recording information. Our threat assessment, that work is managed by our related service providers in our academics office. And what happens is that they provide training to school-based related service providers who are trained to help school administrators assess threats and to work with school police to make sure that the threat is mitigated in the proper manner, especially when it comes to our students. Our emergency operations plans. MSDE requires that we have individual emergency plans for all 130 plus schools in our district. If you visit our Baltimore City Schools safety and security SharePoint, you will see that we have all these plans on file when we do have emergencies and incidents in schools, you will find that very often the school police, the school manager, or the ILED will sit with the school and review their responses. And every year what we do is certify all of these plans with the state of Maryland. And this is just to name like a couple of items or, big initiatives or things that we are doing as it relates to these foundational elements of school safety. But we have a long road to go because we want to make sure that we have the most robust school safety program for all of our schools. So we're going to be leaning into this group for your expertise and feedback, not just as, board members or city schools colleagues, but also as just human beings that are invested in the safety and well-being of our young people. Next slide, please, Cora. So here's where we are. Winter 2024, which is going on right now, we're in the process of codifying all of the current work across all of the departments that were mentioned. For example, facilities FMO, they have quite a few different safety and security projects going on with the weapons detection system, the revised visitor management policy, the new emergency management manager, and just finally, really fine tuning and thinking about ways that we can offer additional trainings to school-based personnel. And then, with this group, I hope that, I'll be able to come back or possibly invite you to some opportunities, just some think tanks to get your ideas or opinions around this body of work. In the springtime, we're going into program design, resource allocation. We'll be in the middle of budget season, as well as some stakeholder involvement and just really fine-tuning the program objectives. And then we hope to roll all this out at the beginning of summer 24, starting with some trainings for teachers as they, prepare to return back to school, and then rolling this out in a public-facing document, along with some milestones. And then the monitoring and evaluation is ongoing, because this is not an isolated body of work. This is just going to become something that's embedded in our school system. And I'm, personally very excited about it, because I understand, even as adults, for me to really focus and learn anything, I first have to feel like I'm in a safe space to do so. So this is very, very, very important for our young people. I know that was a whole bunch of information, and this is just, again, an overview of what is to come. And Cora, if I can, is it okay if I just take a couple of seconds for if anyone has any questions? Commissioner Coy.
Yes, no, thank you for the overview and for the information here. One question that I do have as it relates to some of the items contemplated in the assessment box that you have here. In terms, and this also I imagine fits into monitoring and evaluation, but in terms of either like an incident review or taking examples of things that have happened and trying to backwards map to understand, what were the either touch points or what preceded whatever the identified event might have been. It'd be wonderful to kind of know how that fits in to some of this and where that's happening, and how are we learning from that monitoring evaluation on an ongoing basis, and how that is informing in the assessment, perhaps, or where that might fit.
So, Commissioner Coy, I'm actually glad that you asked that question. Today, myself and a few colleagues from the school's office actually met with MSDE. No, I'm sorry, not MSDE, the Maryland Center for School Safety, to conduct an after-action review in regards to an incident that occurred at one of our schools. We conduct these after-action reviews based on the intensity of the event, and this event was a little intense. But in speaking with Major Coleman after that meeting, we talked about how can we scale this down to emergencies that may not necessarily necessitate a state level response, but still ensuring that schools walk away with lessons learned based on how they handle a situation. So that is definitely, we literally just talked about that today.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And that's great to hear how that's already sort of part of some of the process, and that the question that you all are asking is, how can that happen at a smaller scale, you know, and more frequently, or more, that it doesn't have to be such a big event. And it'll be wonderful as a follow-up to understand a little bit more about, like, what are the type of events that would currently trigger one of those, and what are some of the types of events that you are contemplating, like if it could be at that scaled down version. I'd love to just sort of see that. You can follow up with email to give me a sense for like when those types of things are currently or prospectively being triggered.
Well, as far as like the after action reviews with the Maryland Center for School Safety, those usually occur when there's like a critical incident that could potentially be life-threatening. Now, what Major Cohen and I are thinking about is, for instance, a school reports an incident where there was, you know, I don't know, a group fight or something like that. Those types of things have the potential to get very dangerous. So once, you know, the students are, you know, they've received the appropriate consequences, really sitting down and debriefing with the school around, like, how did your safety protocols go? Did you have to lock the building down? What type of support personnel were in place? Did you have to call for, you know, school police? Did you have to call ambulance? How did you communicate this, you know, with families? So really just bringing it down to, even when scaling it down, just very specific types of infractions or incidents.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I will put my contact information in the chat, and I look forward to partnering with you all in the future. Thank you for this time.
If you can give me 1 second, sorry, I was on mute. Sorry about that. So questions, Commissioner Harrington, Commissioner Esposito, anything?
Nothing from me. None at this time. I may have some follow-up.
Thank you. I appreciate you both. I do have a question for you. When we look at these after action plans, I'm interested in who's involved because these are the more severe cases that may have state involvement. Are the ILEDs a part of this team that goes through this after action plan, and how, and I think it leans into what you spoke about, but more less of the school, but how can a network take advantage of the lessons learned when we have a severe case that we have to respond to along with the state?
Okay, so typically, first and foremost, the ILED is always involved. From the very inception of the reporting of the incident all the way out to closing things out with the after action review with the Maryland Center for School Safety. Along with the ILED, our chief and our deputy chief, most recently, Dr. Toze, was actually, you know, with the group today. The principal, the school manager, of course, school police, and depending on the magnitude of the incident, we also had partners from our whole child office who join as well. So it's a cross-functional work group. It's typically mostly the same people, but it would vary depending on the school because, you know, every school, you know, different ILEDs and different managers, but the anchor people are usually Dr. Toze, Major Coleman, myself, and Cora Parson joins us as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the depth of the work. I know that we will be working together. I want to also highlight the, and you mentioned it multiple times, around the collaboration that you look for from this committee. And we love to hear that. So looking forward to collaborating with you in the immediate future.
Thank you so much.
And we can move on, and we have the Department of Wholeness with Dr. Goodwin. Thank you so much for taking the time. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invite. It's always a pleasure to be on with the commissioners and also the rest of the school's office. My name is Sonia Goodwin, and I am the Executive Director of Whole Child Services and Supports. And I am actually joined by one of my directors today, Katia Stokes. As you may be aware or not, there are several offices that come under the Whole Child, which is the Office of Health and Specialized Services, Athletics, Extracurricular Programming, Attendance, Student suspension services and student conduct, as well as wholeness. Today, we're going to go over the wholeness piece. And as we go to the next slide, as you know, the wholeness work that we are doing is one of the key pillars of the district strategy as it pertains to the 3R work. So we are definitely invested in making sure that more students feel connected and supported at their schools. And as we move to the next slide, we are going to first go over what the student wholeness vision is. You can go to the next slide, please. For the student wholeness vision, I think it's important for me to read the vision, but then I want to unpack it for you and show how each of the different departments that we oversee with the whole child department is an intricate part of how we move forward with wholeness. So city school students are inspired to pursue their passions and develop their potential when schools provide engaging, safe, and supportive environments that foster well-being and meet academic, social, emotional, and physical needs. The reason this is so important is because in our schools, we make sure that we are committed to building communities of students, staff, families, volunteers, and partners where every member is known and valued and where learning is celebrated every day. We make sure that we emphasize respect of our students and their backgrounds and experiences and teach in ways that connect to students' real lives. We make sure that we teach academic and non-academic content, including self-awareness, social awareness, goal setting, decision-making, and also relationship building. One of the areas that we make sure that is incorporated is through our morning meetings and advisory. We also make sure that we set shared expectations for healthy school communities and positive behaviors using restorative practices to resolve conflict, and that is embedded in all of our wholeness work. Then we have another area for extracurricular programming where we offer enrichment extracurricular activities that spark students' interest and promote their curiosity, which also taps into the student voice. We make sure that we provide safe spaces where students in crisis get the support they need to return to their classrooms. And that's through the work that we're doing around wholeness and wellness, and also with our climate work. And then we make sure that connectiveness is so important, that students and their families are connected with resources in the community, which is done through our wholeness area, as well as our Office of Health and Specialized Services. And then something that's really important that also comes through our Office of Health and Specialized Services is the support, the support that we give for health and well-being with free meals, with sports, with fitness, and also with medical services such as vision screenings, dental care, and immunizations. So as you can see, we make sure we embody the whole child. And this here can started out with the work that we were doing around the blueprint, but I just wanted to make sure we started with that wholeness vision so that you can see how we encompass all of the different areas that falls under the whole child. So on the next slide, I will show you the different pillars of student wholeness. And we will go deeper in these areas in the next slides. But first, I just wanted to share this part with you, and I wanted to connect it to the portrait of the graduate that we have. And so there are three areas when we think of the portrait of our graduate that we really focus on. And this is really something that is honed on, especially through our communications. So with growth and enrichment, which is one of the first areas, which involves the outside of the traditional classroom setting, city schools, we are committed to making sure that students can participate in a wide variety of programs to expand their minds, change their perspectives, and enhance their overall school experience. So there's another area that we will go into deeper as we continue to move forward, which is the climate and culture. And the important part of that is to make sure that we are providing supportive and nurturing school environments and making sure that all of the essentials that students need to thrive and learn effectively is a part of the core that we are providing for them. Then with the wellness piece, which is embedded all throughout our wholeness mission and vision, is to ensure that the resources and programs that we are promoting are encompassing the social and emotional well-being for both students and staff, and are in place at schools across the district to ensure a variety of supports that are available or what the students and the staff actually need. Now, for the next slide, our wonderful partner, Sabri, went through the different safety pieces. And we wanted you to know that we're also making sure that there is a healing-centered approach to crisis response and our support plan. So when something happens in the district, we have different phases where we actually deploy resources that is definitely focused in our area on being healing centered and restorative. So for phase one, it focuses on the assessment and the communication. And our goal in that area is to make sure that we determine the level of support, communicate with district stakeholders to begin assessment, as well as the planning of the supports that are going to be needed in the school, and communication to stakeholders. The communication is so essential because everyone needs to have a good idea of what they're supposed to do when they go in. And the most important part for us is for schools to feel like they are supported in this process so that they don't feel like they have to do everything on their own. So it's very important for us to make sure the assessment and the communication is done correctly, which is why we set a plan in place to make sure everyone knows their part. Then for phase two, our goal is to create a space for adults and students to receive individualized supports. This piece, again, is important because the collaboration and planning, if that is not done, then we're sort of scrambling, trying to find what resources we should use. So we have a bank of resources, and we make sure that those are the resources that we provide to schools so that they do not have to figure this out on their own. And then for phase three, which is modeling and implementation, our goal is to provide schools with support that is grounded in restoring a space of physical and emotional safety. Again, very important, because once something happens, everyone is experiencing things differently. So it's important for us to go in, to assess the situation, and to make sure that we are providing supports that's needed. But it's also important for us to make sure that we are modeling. So if someone is more familiar with the instruction in the classroom, but we need a circle that we're doing because we need to make sure that the students are okay and that they have a voice and a place to actually voice what they're feeling. So we make sure that we are there to model for schools and make sure that everyone has a good understanding of how this should look in the school building. And then phase four, we make sure that we monitor, sustain, and recover. And during that phase, our goal is to provide schools with ongoing support to ensure stabilization, because at some point we will be leaving the buildings, but it's not okay to leave and individuals do not know what is supposed to happen next. So we make sure that the stabilization is there. That is important, but we also make sure that the teams, the school teams, are able to sustain once we are no longer in the buildings. It is varied because some teams are larger than others and they have related services, or they have different supports. They have climate teams and others that can support them during this time. But for the ones who do not, who need more of our support, we want to make sure that we are there for them. Now, I've said a lot. I am going to actually give one of my directors the opportunity to come behind me and actually share with you, start to share with you how our work is grounded for the climate and culture piece in the 9 domains. Katia?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sure all of us could, if we took a moment to reflect and pause and think about our experience in schools, we all could probably come up with a gamut of experiences. And if you took a moment to pause and think about individuals who may have impacted you or influenced you, I'm certainly you could call a name. You probably are smiling, or you could be frowning right now, depending upon whatever name came to mind. What I just described to you was just that work around culture and climate. You can go ahead to the next slide, please. When we talk about our culture and climate, I really want to make sure we are emphasizing the reason why we say both, because there is a distinction and there is a difference. When we think about culture, we think about culture as the feel of the school. We think about it as the heart and soul of the school. It is the thing that will make you want to stay or disengage. It is the thing that will encourage you to either come or pull back. And it's the thing that will cause you to either love the school, or if you are on the opposite end of loving the school, have a disdain, not feel as connected. When we think about culture, it's the way that things are done. And I like to think of it, and you've often probably heard of it, as the personality of the school. It was those conversations, as well as conversations with our stakeholders once we returned to school after COVID, when we thought about what would be essential and important to focus on. What we heard from every stakeholder group was that culture and climate was top of mind. And what was top of mind was making sure that our schools were places where they could feel known, cared for, and supported. As a result of those stakeholder conversations, as well as a result of those deep dive conversations into culture, as well as climate, what does it mean? What does it look like? What does it feel? Out of that evolved the work of the 9 domains that you see displayed on your screen. These are the 9 domains based upon research, based upon the conversations with our stakeholder groups, based upon collaborative conversations here among district office staff as well. These are the 9 domains that were held to be the 9 essential things that will lead to creating those environments that we envision to be safe, welcoming, joyful places where our young people can thrive. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, can you go back one more? Because I want to make sure I emphasize. Before we move on, as you can see there in the brackets, we were very intentional about making sure we gradually roll out the domains. While we shared the overall definitions and helped to build understanding around what each domain means, we thought it was critically important that over time, we take our time to actually focus in on key priorities. So the 4 priority domains that we are focusing on this school year is our high quality stakeholder experience, nurturing relationships and well-being, school-wide and classroom norms and routines, and of course, supportive behavior approaches. You think about high quality stakeholder experience, we're thinking about the experience from when you enter the door to when you leave. Some might think of it as customer service, the Nordstrom way. We also like to expand it to also make sure that includes making sure that all stakeholders are heard and they have an opportunity to contribute. When you think about nurturing relationships and well-being, that's where we're focusing on creating a culture of care and connection and community. As Ms. Goodwin shared earlier, this will be an opportunity where district-wide, we're focusing on morning meeting and advisory, where it's an opportunity to foster that connection and community and relationships among students and staff. School-wide and classroom norms and routines, of course, gets to what are our shared values? What are our expectations? What do we believe? How do we move in this school building? And what is our mindset about how we approach and speak and engage with one another? And then lastly, supportive behavior approaches is how we are supporting young people with being able to get continual access to a continuum of support for social, emotional, and their mental well-being. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide here gives a little more insight into how we are thinking about our work and how we're being strategic about supporting our schools around the culture and climate. As I shared, we are focusing in on 4 priority domains. And this is how we like to really summarize how we are focusing on that work. We want to know our climate walk and our climate blitz helps us to know exactly what is happening in our schools, what do they have available, how they are utilizing their resources. So we are doing the climate walk and the climate blitz as an opportunity to be able to see how the domains are actually being enacted in our schools. What we were able to do over the past year and a half is to be able to develop out an actual climate walk tool that aligns to those 4 priority domains. So we're able to also assess that. But what we also like to do is it's not just about what we have outlined in the domain. We know that our schools have created strong visions around what they hope to see in their school. The Climate Blitz process allows a collaborative team or cross-departmental team to go in and to support the school with being able to look at the data, identify an area in which they would like thought partnership around an area of support. We are able to do an observational walk and then be able to do follow-up data conversations, as well as follow-up support with that school. That takes us to the resource and support alignment. We're able to look at the data and then be able to align with it the most necessary supports that meets their needs. And we want to be intentional about making sure we are appropriately utilizing our resources in that way. And then we have a case management model where we have staff on our team that is able to go back and provide additional support. It's important that we don't just give feedback or just create plans and leave it there. We want to be able to make sure we are able to assess to see how the feedback is working, see how the school is able to implement the support and services, and then adjust practice as necessary. Next slide, please. I love the definition that's here on the screen. I know you can read it, but I'll go ahead and read it for you. Restorative practices, the strategy to create stronger school communities, cultivate relationships, promote accountability, and repair harm in a manner that honors humanity. When I think about restorative practices, I think about relationships being at the heart of restorative practices. Our restorative practices work has been ongoing in city schools. Part of what we want to do this school year is have a more systemic approach to our professional development. We really want to make sure we have a robust approach towards making sure our school administrators and our central office staff are trained in the foundational practices. We also want to make sure that we are building our capacity to actually support schools with implementing RP by increasing our partnerships and being a part of our restorative practices consortium. We also want to make sure that we are building our capacity to also implement restorative practices by building our own internal capacity. And then we are always intentional about making sure that we are applying a restorative lens when we're thinking about policy or when we're thinking about programs. So a great example would be like our code of conduct, being able to embed what restorative practices looks like, being able to embed what does a proactive approach look, what does that look like to take a restorative lens when you're thinking about a situation. Next slide, please. Along with that, our office is also focusing in on social and emotional well-being. When we think about that, as we shared the definition of restorative practices on the previous slide, when we think about our social emotional learning, we're thinking about the knowledge, skills, the attitude, the mindset to be able to make healthy decisions, to be able to develop our internal identity, to be able to manage our emotions, to be able to establish positive relationships. So when we talked about restorative practices, relationships being at the heart of that, I really like to think about being and belonging being at the heart of social emotional learning. And so we think about being and belonging. This is the work where we are helping our young people to be able to be their best selves. I like to phrase it as being, belonging, and becoming. So there are three areas that we're being intentional about integrating our SEL into school-wide or district-wide student supports. One is through our student wellness support team. That student wellness support team is in every school. This team is comprised of our subject matter experts in mental health. It also is comprised of our student wholeness specialists. It's comprised of our nurses. But on this team is supporting families with students with being able to get access to additional resources. Then we have our student wholeness specialists in our schools. Our student wholeness specialists, there are 50 wholeness specialists who are working actively in our schools, in our intensive learning sites. Our intensive learning site schools were the schools where we first began our work with embedding social emotional learning and restorative practices, and doing a deep dive into what does that look like, feel like, and sound like in our schools. Our student wholeness specialists are equipped with the skill sets and the strategies and the skills to be able to support students with introducing to students opportunities for them around wellness, building their emotional wellness, promoting emotional literacy, being able to get them to reflect, and also helping them to develop healthy coping strategies. They're also trained in restorative practices, so they're also able to support students with conflict resolution as well. And then lastly, the other area in which we are collaborating across offices to embed social emotional learning is through our student learning plans. Our student learning plans are an opportunity for our young people, as well as their families, to engage in conversations around things like what motivates them? What is your goal? What encouraged you to come to school? How would you like to receive feedback? It's getting more personalized in their support, but we work collaboratively with our colleagues to ensure that the competencies around social emotional learning are also embedded within those questions. And then we also make sure that there's an opportunity, we build in opportunities for student learning plans to be developed, talked about, and followed up on during morning meeting or advisory.
And as we bring this to a close, we are going to sort of touch on where do we go from here with eco mapping. So this came up in our last session, and I believe it was Commissioner Muhammad that brought it up, and it just brought a smile to our face because this is the direction that we're going in as we are trying to connect all of the essential components to addressing the whole child. So in this area, I know that we have more conversations that we have to engage in, but we are very excited about making sure that there are areas that we are looking across to ensure we are addressing, we're bringing folks together for the community engagement piece and making sure that we are fostering community partnerships and engaging residents and identifying and addressing the root causes of some of the concerns that we are seeing that are coming in front of our families, and that's causing them not to be as productive as they would like to be. Also, with establishing like community outreach programs and building trust and collaboration between all of the different stakeholders that are all engaged in the process of making sure our students are doing well. And then also approaching it from an education and employment standpoint and providing educational and training programs to our at-risk youth to enhance their skills and increase employability. Also looking at how we can partner with local businesses and create job opportunities and internships, as well as like youth outreach and mentoring, and how we can make sure that we are implementing different mentoring programs to connect with students and families to ensure that we are sewing into them what is needed for them to be productive citizens. And there is so much more that comes in with this, but we're really excited about the direction that we are moving in. And we are embedding this throughout our work in attendance, with suspensions, and also the work that we're doing in wholeness. So I would really like to thank you for this opportunity. And I believe we are at time. If there are any questions, please feel free to ask. And we are really looking forward to this opportunity to be able to continue to come together with this group. It has been very enlightening, and it is very refreshing just to know that this group is just as passionate, if not more, than we are about this work. So we're excited. Thank you for the opportunity.
I appreciate the words, Commissioner Coy. Please, if you have a question.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I'm also happy if either Commissioner Esposito or Commissioner Slater-Harrington have a question.
Commissioner Harrington?
Yes, thank you for such a thorough and enlightening presentation. Not today, of course, but I'm interested in how your work intersects with student support teams. And if there is a loop when you do a crisis response, how those students are sent through student support, and what is the ongoing support for student support teams, and making sure that they're all up and running. In my experience, they haven't been all functional as they should be, but I see it as a key lever. So I'm interested in the future and learning more.
Yes, we are definitely looking forward to having that conversation with you, even though the student support teams do not actually come under our office. The student wellness support teams, they do, but we are doing a better job making sure that we're working across teams, because we know that we should not be working, yes, we should not be working in isolation. So I am looking forward to continuing that conversation. Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Sure. I just want to see the alignment in the intersection to make sure that there's continuity in services that are provided, and that we're not too heavy on the reaction. We're being proactive. And sometimes if we can catch a family, if they come up in a climate conversation, we can catch them in SST, then we don't have a crisis. It's all related. So
yes, and
you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's why we're really emphasizing the case management models this year, because we are trying to be more proactive and ensuring that something doesn't necessarily have to happen before we are actually looking into how we can support students. So we're looking into like partnering with the mentoring group and different grassroots organizations, different stakeholder groups. So yes, we are definitely right alongside with you, knowing that we have to take a more proactive approach. Thank you for calling that out.
Great. I have a question, Chair, that I will table for follow-up after some discussion with you. Just want to make sure you and I circle back on it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. Commissioner Esposito.
I guess, I don't know. Wait, hold up. I don't know if am I frozen?
No, we can hear you. You're fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess like some of the folks that I work with in the community, they are almost like the secondary parent to the student. Like, is there any way in the case management model that that person is like part of that process?
So yes, definitely. We know now that it can't be done just by one. As the saying goes, it takes a whole village to raise a child. And we know that we have to make sure that we are connecting all of the persons that are important in the student's life. So we are starting to do a model where we are actually looking at the student. We're seeing all of the individuals that are connected to that student and seeing what resources they're providing. And I know this is it's not going to happen overnight, but we're trying to get those who are supporting the student to have more collaboration amongst one another, so that number one, we can all know what's going on in the student's life, and number two, we can provide resources to do a full wraparound program so that we are not leaving any gaps in the needs of the student. So I definitely would like to continue that conversation with you, because that's the direction we're trying to move in. We know that we don't know of all of the grassroots organizations or all of those who may be in the communities. So any information that anyone has, we definitely would welcome that, because we want to make sure that we're not leaving anyone out. We don't want to make anyone feel that their efforts are not important. So thank you for flagging that for us.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Coy. Commissioner Coy.
Yeah, no, all this conversation, you all have been really good on the time. The time that's in the agenda, we have just been like within minutes of that for different stages. So I appreciate that. I have one question that goes back a little bit in time to some of the conversation around climate. And then I have a question related to the eco map as well. When you talked about some of the ways that we are currently collecting insights from various stakeholders, from students and families and educators about culture and climate, my question is, what are some ways that City Schools is currently not collecting insights, but maybe could be?
That is oh, I'm sorry, Katia, were you going to answer? That is a great question. And that's probably something that we need to look more into, because if there is an area that we are missing, and if we are not aware of that, then that would be an area that we're not covering. So that's a great question. That is a great question, and we will definitely look into that. We feel that we are expanding the different ways to receive information by ensuring that we are talking to all stakeholder groups. But just because we're including all stakeholder groups, that does not mean we're talking to every person. And every parent may not necessarily have the same input, or may not have the same information to provide, as well as different people in stakeholder groups that share within the stakeholder group, but they may not have the same opinion. They may not have the same life experience. So as we move forward, I'm going to ask that question. So thank you, because we definitely want to make sure if it's something that we're missing, we do not want to leave any stone uncovered. We do not want to leave any student out there or family out there without the supports that's needed. So thank you for challenging our thinking. I have written that down, and that's going to be my opening question every time. Thank you, Commissioner Coy.
No, yeah, I was going to say, oh, I'm sorry. May I quick? Yeah, I was going to say that was a great question, but I think it speaks to part of the direction that we are really going in, and it's about asking questions, right? And being able to make sure we're in those collaborative spaces with people with different perspectives, to make sure that we're hearing questions such as what you just said. What aren't we thinking about? What aren't we collecting? And that's why we're really trying to have that intentional focus on looking at the data, and to be able to really adjust practice and really be open to what else is there for us to do. So I really appreciate you for asking that question. And it brings home sort of the direction we're really focusing in our work as well.
Well, and one thing that I'll add is, I think it's a healthy exercise to also, once you make that list, to make it sufficiently big and encompassing, but to know that it, just because you could collect data doesn't mean that it's actually feasible or doable. But if you don't even know what's currently on that, could but not currently, if you don't know where you are on that line, then asking the question of, like, if you had more resources, or if you had more, like, what would you be doing? It kind of gives you a little bit of, like, this is what we would need and this is what we could do. So in doing so, I also don't want it to come with an implied pressure that you have to then, you can't do all things, and so I think it's a really important way to say, okay, these are the places that we currently are, that we have a strong ability. This is where we could be, but we aren't. And if we had, then we would be. And this is where, like, we don't even know if we could do that, but there's some structural limitation or some other thing, right? Some of the areas that I would also just think about and this relates a little bit to the eco mapping, is how, and my question to eco mapping, but it's not unrelated to the other, is how are you currently considering the relationship between city schools and other city or state agencies and departments? Like, describe that, in this bigger picture, knowing that schools are one part of a much bigger ecosystem. And one thing that I've often said is relay races can be won or lost in the baton pass. And it just feels like a lot of times there's like baton being dropped, and these are, meaning our students are starting the race of life, where the other people are already further ahead than them, right? Because of these baton passes being dropped. But I also think that it's good to have overlap, right? That we don't want to have such a defined system that we're like, as soon as one thing butts up to the other, then we're like, okay, that's it. Like we define that, because if we have no overlap, then there are going to be those that fall through the cracks, and just like with some of the earlier items on school safety, one important model about any safety system, physical or digital, is that you have, I think it's often called like the Swiss cheese, where the goal is that you lay enough layers of systems that any one hole in one of the systems doesn't lead to a complete falling through. That there's multiple ways to catch that. And I just think about what is the relationship there with others, city and state agencies, and how are we holding them accountable? How do we know what the different roles are? That's some of the questions that I would ask. I'm happy to hear some of your thoughts now, but I do think this is a little bit of like what the eco mapping is aiming to help, describe.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That is a great question. And I'll start. Katia, if you want to add in, please feel free. But one of the things that we have been really focused on this year, and moving forward, we will continue to be focused on it, is just making sure that we are in different conversations outside of the walls of central office. So we have a good relationship with the different departments here, and it's great to collaborate across departments within central office. But we also know that we have to go outside of the walls of district office to ensure that we are hearing from like the grassroots organizations, the community members, city agencies, the philanthropic community, and with some of the meetings that we've been involved in, there are several different committees I sit on for the mayor. And so I've had the opportunity to connect with like his deputies, with his directors, and with different folks who are doing some of the same work. We're all servicing the same students. And so we're doing great things in silos. And sometimes you don't gain as much traction because it feels like you're working really hard. But we're seeing that when we start to combine forces, that's really helping us to go even further, because as we are addressing the students, like some of us have ideals that the others may not have. We have different experiences, things that we've tried. So instead of everyone making the same mistake, if we combine forces, that's going to make us even stronger. And then we have also, we actually have a meeting next week for the Restorative Practices Consortium, and that is being hosted by one of the members of the City Council. And so there are several grassroots organizations that are coming in. Positive School Center will be coming in, and some other folks who are in the who's doing the work of restorative practices. And some of us have never been in the room together before. And so we know that it's going to take a lot of relationship building. There are, some things, some people are hurt by different things. We know there are some who have been able, if I could just be transparent, to get contracts, and others are not sure how to do that. So we want to bring everyone together. We want to make sure that we're addressing the concern together for those who need assistance on how they can get into supporting more. We want to make sure that we are serving as that resource for them, so that they understand how to get contracts. They understand how to build relationships with different schools, or how to at least try to assess the situation. So we are definitely making attempts to get into circles that we were not in previously, and it is actually very it's very heartwarming, because for them to see us coming to them and not them having to come to us, it is really opening doors. It is starting conversations that we did not have before, and it is really helping us to really build on our product. One of the things that came out of it, and then I'll let Katia go. See, this is, I'm so passionate about this. One of the things that came from out of this was a conversation that we had with City Council, and it was one of the BTU members around training that was needed for hall monitors. And so we went into the conversation, and we just needed them to understand that we're in partnership with you. So we were able to turn something around for them in like a 2-week period. And they were just so pleased with that. It took us to another level with them. And now they've opened the door for us so that we can have additional conversations that we may have been on the opposite sides before, but now we're like coming together, and it is just so breathtaking. But I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to let Katia share if she has an example.
I think she said everything I would probably possibly want to say. I was like, wait, I was thinking of that. But I'm gonna say that I'm gonna take it to the healing centered work. And there is healing in community. And last year we started this journey around what does this healing centered work look like? And it came about through partnerships. Like last year, we unfortunately, we lost quite a few students unexpectedly. And it was many of us from my team, from Sabri's team, who had to go out and respond. Drop at a moment's notice, drop whatever you were doing, a call on the weekend, a call at night to a principal to talk through what to do. And we were learning sort of as we were going, putting things together, building processes. But we came together as community to figure this out. We came together, Positive School Center, Akaben, Project Numa. There were many of our vendors who supported us. We were able to build out what does that healing approach look like? Because it's not just the response in that moment, but it is also about helping the community to be able to heal. Right? And what does it look like to heal together in community? So many of our partners came together, whether it was helping to teach breathing or helping to bring resources, helping us to have healing circles and coordinate and conduct healing circles together. We don't get to today and where we are today in this process without those partnerships, without us reaching across the aisle outside the walls and be able to develop this process together.
Well, I definitely want to say I appreciate not just your responses, but your passion in this work. It's much needed, and we are happy to have you doing this work. I think there is a question from Commissioner Esposito.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, but I was wondering if there's groups that, like the ones that I mentioned before, that are like connected to students and doing that work, but kind of like off the grid. Like, is there a way to loop them into that work that's coming up?
Yeah, great question. Is it possible for you to share the names with me? Because we are not the ones who are sending the invite, but we can definitely make sure that their names are included. This is the initial meeting, so it will not be the last of the meetings. So even if they're not able to come to this one, I definitely want to get their names, because our goal is to make sure that we can touch as many folks that's doing the work across the city, so that we can all come together and wrap our services around the students. So yes, please provide that information if that's okay.
Yeah, I can definitely put that together.
Great question. I appreciate you adding that. I want to say that I have two questions, but I think that we can add them to the work that we do moving forward. One is really around clarity around the Healing Center plan and how we are supporting our leaders, because we have some schools that they have quite a few incidents, and that the impact that it's having on our leaders is really important. And as we're developing these plans, are we looking at how we can further support our leaders as we are supporting our young people and supporting our schools? Our leaders are very important. So interested in that. And then the concept of culture is really important. I like the use of culture when we're talking about school climate. Um, and I would, because you're doing great work, and the priorities that you're focused on right now are pivotal for us to create healthy environments. How are we communicating those priorities to our parents? How are we communicating those priorities to our students? And if we could also use this as the opportunity to do such as well, because we are fully aware that you're doing great work, and often our community and our parents are not always as abreast as we would like them to be with the detail of the work that you're putting in every day. So how much time are we putting into making sure that they are aware of the great work that you're doing is really important. And with that, uh, I want to thank everyone uh, for their time today. Is there anything else that we need to address on our agenda, Dr. Judkins?
I am not seeing anything else. Tanisha, do you see anything else that we need to hit?
With that, I think we're good.
Yeah.
So I want to take this opportunity to thank the individuals and the teams that work on safety and wholeness, because this is the work that allows our students to make it to school and want to come to school. When we think about attendance and we think about our children being comfortable and having great learning environments, it starts with the work that you're doing. So the work around this committee will be focused on, of course, safety first and foremost, and then it will be focused on what I'll refer to as our ABCs. Our ABCs is school attendance. So all of the work, how are we touching and how are we impacting school attendance with everything that we do? With school behavior, how are we assuring that the behavior of our young people leads to performance in the classroom? So that's course performance. So those are our ABCs: school attendance, behavior, and course performance. And if we stay along this line, I'm sure that we're going to create these healthy environments that you're already creating, and we're going to be able to expand that work. Moving in the future, so that we all know, with regards to this committee, there will be uh, a, interest, and we'll be hopefully touching in the next group, the interagency collaborative work. We will be discussing the processes that we take around collecting data and how we can get really small and find out those students that need us the most. How do we impact them over and over through this eco mapping? And then we want to do something we're going to just refer to as school partner highlights. Because the work that we do is really supported by school partners. And we want to take this opportunity using these meetings to bring on a partner, school partner, every session, and allow that school partner to highlight the work and the impact that they are having within the district. So that will be a part of our sessions moving forward. And we will be working to collaboratively to develop the schedule for 2024 around safety and wholeness because this is new and we want to make sure we give everyone forewarning around the interests of the board that we will be collaboratively putting together. And on the heels of Martin Luther King Day, I thought that it would be very important to close with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. And he referred to education as such. The function of education is to teach one to think intensively and critically, but to focus intelligence on building character. That is our goal of education. So if we are in the role of building healthy, young, sharp minds, we must be in the role of building strong character. And strong character, if anyone doesn't know, starts with wholeness. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you to my fellow commissioners. Thank you to the board office, and thank you to all staff and public who took the time to join this committee meeting tonight. Have a good night, and we look forward to continuing the impact and ensuring that our schools are safe and whole. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.